Should be the Thursday day. Yep.
That'll determine the right one.
That's gonna go
Yep,
after.
I found it.
Okay, it's gonna go after John does his legislation update. Oh, there's some links right there. Next.
I didn't even realize it.
That's true.
Okay, we are live and I have John Meeks.
Oh, great.
Still got infection in the bone.
See it.
Yeah. Morning, all.
Good morning.
Morning.
Commissioner Volrath is going to lead the invocation, and then I guess I'm doing the pledge, and I'll have to remember during the Eisenhower administration, under God was added. I believe that's correct.
So you did your first classroom, you didn't have it, right?
Where that be?
This week, Watervliet Township Supervisor passed away, and I'd like to have a moment of silence for Dan Hutchins, who has served Watervliet Township for over 20 years in their local government, and we appreciate all that he did, and his family, we wish nothing but the best. Thank you. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day and all the opportunities it has to offer. Please be with us and guide our hearts and our minds as we come together today to make crucial decisions that affect us all. May we always be here in support of one another as we continue to search for the most meaningful ways to serve you and our neighbors. Lord, we thank you for your presence here today, and as we pray in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You talk yourself out.
Yeah, switched it around. Thinking about President Eisenhower. Roll call, please.
Chickering,
Here, live.
Curran,
No beer.
no. He's absent? Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I would suggest that when they respond, they confirm that if they are remote, they confirm they're remote and where they are, what the village, township, city.
Okay. So if you're coming in via the internet, say your name and your location, please.
Confirm that you're remote,
Yeah,
has to be on the minutes.
got that?
Yes,
So if you're, if it's you, Mamie Yarborough, you say Mamie Yarborough, via Zoom from the city of Benton Harbor.
okay, that's a lot.
No, everybody's going to say that from Benton.
Freely,
Present.
Harrison,
Commissioner Harrison is live from Lincoln Township.
Hugo,
I'm Zoom, currently in South Bend, Indiana.
where in Indiana?
South Bend.
Hinkleman. John,
Yes, I'm John Eastman is here present, and I'm Cambridge Township.
Thank you.
Majerick,
Michael Majerick from the great city of Niles.
Don Meeks,
Don Meeks, Ben Charter Township. Here.
Ezra Scott,
Yes, Commissioner Ezra Scott, live to you on Zoom from New Buffalo Township.
Borat,
I am here in the room, present.
Yarborough,
Mamie Yarborough, Zoom, Benton Harbor, Michigan.
Elliott.
Here in the boardroom.
Mr. Chair, you have 12 present.
Thank you.
No, 11. Oh, 11, Harrison. I apologize, I forgot. Curran is absent.
Minutes from last week. Any changes to those?
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Scott. I make a motion to approve the minutes from our
Michael,
2020 meeting.
Michael Majerick, I'll second that from Niles.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Chickering.
Yes.
Freely.
Yes.
Harrison.
Yes.
Hugo.
Yes.
Pinkelman.
Yes.
Majerick.
Yes.
Meeks.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Walrath.
Yes.
Yarborough.
Yes.
Elliott.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 11 yeas.
Thank you. Communications?
We have none.
Very good. Let's get an update for the full board from Nikki Britton, the health officer. Nikki, you're on.
Thank you for having me. I'm going to share a little bit of data with you today, just about what's happening. We've had a little bit of some changes in our trends. What you should see on the screen now is the epi curve that shows the number of confirmed cases over the course of the pandemic. You can see that for the last 2 months or so, we've been what I would consider a plateau. We've been averaging anywhere from 8 to 12 new cases per day when looking at a 7-day rolling average. We've seen over the last 10 to 12 days, we've seen a fairly significant increase in those number of confirmed cases. And you can see that on that steep increase here, where we're sitting now at an average of around 22 cases per day. It's part of our 7-day rolling average. As I've said to you many times, the number of confirmed cases is just one piece of information in determining what is going on with community transmission and how to assess really where Berrien County is at in terms of the pandemic. So we see that, but that's not the whole story. When we look at our percent positivity, this is another important metric. Again, that's the percentage of COVID-19 tests that come back with a positive result. Again, for a couple of months, we've been sitting right around that 3% mark, which is really put out there as a benchmark of wanting to be at 3% or lower. We had been there for a period of time. Over the last week or so, in correspondence with the increase in our number of cases, as one would expect based on mathematics, we have seen a small increase in that percent positivity. So we're sitting currently at 4.1%. That is still a very good percent positivity, and that is still fairly low. So we're continuing to keep an eye on and watching the situation, but that number is not yet any cause for alarm. In addition to number of confirmed cases and our percent positivity, we also want to look at hospitalization, because we know that the number of people that become ill enough to be hospitalized for COVID-19, that's not something that can be impacted by a testing strategy. The number of tests available or number of people getting tested, people who become sick enough to need that care will just need that care no matter what external factors there are out there. So you can see that there was, this graph shows the inpatient census. This is not number of new people arriving at the hospital on a daily basis, but it's the number of people in the hospital. And we know that many hospital stays are multi-day. But so this graph shows that it's a 7-day rolling average. Again, we have seen a bit of an increase in the number of people in the hospital with a COVID-19 positive test. But over the last week, we've seen a plateau and then a little bit of a dip and another plateau. It's worth noting that we went 5-6 days with no new admissions due to COVID-19. And for the most part, we have had, until yesterday, we had gone several days without having anybody in the ICU due to COVID-19 as well. So while we are seeing a little bit of this increase, and this can be found on our dashboard, I don't believe we're seeing this huge surge in the need for hospitalization. The caveat I'll add to that, though, is that hospitalizations tend to lag a little bit behind an increase in the number of confirmed cases. Sometimes it's not till days 7, 8, 9, 10 of infection that somebody becomes ill enough to need hospitalization. So we're continuing to watch this trend. We continue to be in really good partnership with Spectrum Health Lakeland in understanding what is going on in terms of their capacity. There's PPE availability. We're feeling good about where our healthcare system is right now. Obviously, ready to modify things if that becomes warranted, if trends continue or don't stabilize. And another piece of information that we really look at in metric is the death trends. And this is showing the deaths throughout the entire course of the pandemic. You can see here towards more recently, we've had a bit more of, I don't want to call it quite sporadic, but we have had deaths every few days, maybe each week there might be a death. It hasn't been a super regular, and we're not seeing a change in that trend yet. Similar to the hospitalization data, the death trends do tend to lag a little bit behind that confirmed case trend because of the disease process. So it's possible we may still have a change in trend coming in deaths, and it's too soon to see that. I'm hopeful that with the leveling off of what's going on in the hospital, that's good news for the COVID-19 deaths. So a couple of just key points I want to stress about the data. So we're seeing this. We're monitoring schools and what's been happening in schools. There's a lot of scientific evidence and research out there that is indicating that children tend not to be the super spreaders. Schools do not seem to be contributing to these super spreader events. And in Berrien County, schools are doing well. We've had about 36 positive cases associated with a school. Now, that does not mean that they became infected at school. That is just a positive case amongst a student that attends a school or somebody who works in a school. Given the amount of students and school staff members we have, that's actually, and what's going on in the community, that's well below what I would have expected over 7-8 weeks of the school year. And so that's below that background rate. So I'm encouraged by that. We have had probably about 350 students that have been placed in quarantine that are affiliated with a school. The vast majority of those have been quarantined due to an exposure outside of school, not in school. So there have been some students that have been quarantined due to an exposure in school. Our schools have been doing a really good job of minimizing that. So I think things are going well in schools. So that's another important piece of data in helping us understand what's going on in the community. So essential, my takeaways are that we need to continue to be watchful and vigilant, really monitoring trends closely. But this is not, in my mind, the time that we really need to sound lots of alarm bells. We're watching, we're being vigilant. It's not panic time, even though we see that steep increase in the confirmed cases. That alone does not trigger all of this. There is continued vigilance. This is a good reminder that protective measures are still warranted, that we are still dealing with this virus. We're learning to live with this virus. A lot of the time, public health measures are somewhat invisible. When public health and protective measures are working, nothing happens. And it can be easy to get into that mode of, well, nothing happened, we must not have needed to do these things. I would caution us against getting that, fatigue. We're 7 months in here. There is a lot of fatigue with how life has changed since March. I completely understand and empathize with all of those feelings. But just because we haven't had this big surge of infections or hospitalizations or deaths in our community, that's a really good thing. And I think we can attribute it to many protective measures and actions that have been taken in our community, in our state, in our country. So I want to really make sure that we hone in on that. It's natural to feel fatigued I think we need to stay encouraged that we've been doing good things. We have been protecting our residents. A part of that the health department has continued to be part of, as you know, is contact tracing and case investigation. That does remain a really powerful tool in helping to prevent and really slow transmission and protecting our vulnerable people. It has been very inconvenient, absolutely. It does help us protect vulnerable. And our protective measures that we really want to make sure we continue to emphasize is really avoiding respiratory droplets. We know respiratory droplets from person-to-person transmission or person-to-person contact remains the main source of transmission. So minimizing your output of droplets and your exposure to other people's droplets remains your best course of prevention. This is where things like social distancing, wearing that mask, washing hands, really important to stay home when sick. And if there are any symptoms, trying to stay in small groups, avoiding large gatherings, and being outdoors or having open windows or any of those things as the weather continues to allow for here. Those are all things that are really warranted and we need to pay close attention to as we're doing those things that we have reason to believe have been working well in Berrien County so far. These are going to be the things that are going to allow schools to continue to stay open, businesses to continue to remain operating. I think we're learning to live with the virus, and I just want to encourage us to continue with the things we've learned have helped us along and helped us as we're opening things up. So I'll stop there. I'm happy to take any questions. If there's points of clarification in the data or anything, I'm happy to do that.
Any questions? Any questions from in the room or from out there in the virtual world?
Chairman, Mamie
Yes, ma'am.
Yarborough, Benton Harbor.
Yes, ma'am.
What I would like to say, Nikki, I understand signing into things when and the 9 people you hired so that you can keep track to trace and to go back to where did it start. It's so important. And I hope people are comfortable and agreeable to signing into places, because we have that administration. When you come to the building, you sign. And that's just so to keep track, you need to do that tracing. So I thank you for reading and following and explaining how things go and why they're done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions? Nikki, can you give us a rough breakdown of age brackets above 40, below 40 in terms of the increasing positives?
Yes. Let me flip to that page. So since September 1, so over the last 6 weeks or so, we have had 75% of our cases have been under the age of 60. And that helps explain potentially, we know that age group is less likely to be, to require hospital level care or have some of the serious complications with COVID that are sometimes seen. So knowing that we have a fairly young subset of people in these positive cases does help explain why we might not be seeing the subsequent increases in hospitalization and ultimately death. But it's 75% of all of those cases since September 1 are under the age of 60. And then we've got closer to about 45% are under the age of 40.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
If there are no other questions, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Thanks, Nikki.
Thanks, Nikki.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you.
And the next agenda item is a report from Corporate Counsel on legislation update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning. The legislature has under consideration Senate Bill 1108, which would amend Section 3 of the Open Meetings Act to permit remote meetings explicitly. If you recall, in the past, before the Supreme Court ruling about almost 2 weeks ago, the remote meetings were being conducted under an executive order that has been ruled invalid. It's my understanding that I have confirmed on the website, legislative website, that Senate Bill 1108 has been passed by the Senate, and then a version has been passed by the House, and then yesterday the Senate confirmed the House version, so we have a bill that both houses have agreed to, and it is going to be, or has been presented to the governor. The initial report that I had, and I believe Brian Dissett had as well from the Michigan Municipal League or Michigan County Association, was that the governor was expected to sign it yesterday. It's my understanding that she did not. It's not the actual bill or public act is not on the website as of this morning. Brian's understanding from the initial Michigan Municipal League is that it will be signed today by the governor. And if that occurs, we will have an amendment that it's my understanding will take effect immediately because it was passed by a sufficient majority of both houses. That's 2/3. So, what you're most interested in, I believe, is how it affects you today if it's signed. And until the end of the year, that is until January 1, 2021, you can have a remote meeting, and you don't need any reason to do it. It's under any circumstances. There are specific procedural guidelines and requirements that must be followed. They're similar to what was in the executive order, and you likely been following those all along anyway. There is a requirement, as I stated before the meeting commenced, that when the meeting begins, each remote participant must confirm that the participation is remote, and it's my recommendation you use that word. I am participating remotely, and then you need to tell the location where you're at by township, village, or city. And you've all done that today. As of the end of the year, after the end of the year, as of January 1, 2021, remote meetings will only be permitted for specific members for specific purposes. Those are a medical condition of the member prohibits actual physical presence. Military duty. Military duty is already an exception in the Act, so that's not anything new. Military duty, or generally, if there is a state or local state of emergency or state of disaster declared, that requires a declaration. And that can be local as well as state. And the local declaration can be by the chairperson of the county commission, which is good for 7 days. Thereafter, it needs approval by this full board. That's the highlights of it, and it is retroactive. Any circumstance provision that's effective until the end of the year is also retroactive to March 18, 2020. So any action you took from March 18 forward as a result of having remote meetings, as long as the notices were proper, et cetera, is good. And that will likely prevent having to go back and reenact anything. I spoke to your bond counsel, John Act, several times this week. John was one of the leaders in helping to draft and get this legislation moving quickly through the legislature, and he thought that would clear his concern as bond counsel regarding the past actions. And as I mentioned at my previous address to you regarding this issue, bond counsel, as they should be, are perhaps the most conservative of all lawyers, because they're dealing with things that need to be right, and there's huge consequences if they aren't. So that's the extent of my report. As I mentioned, there are some technical details and things that need to be on the website, and including they need to be notices 18 hours before, an agenda 2 hours before. You can change the agenda, but you should put it on there 2 hours before, and some other technical things. But the basic thing you want to know is that you can do this until the end of the year, or under any circumstances.
Very good. Questions for Judge Dwayne?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Scott,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to speak for myself, but I think I'll have full support of the board on this. I'd just like to thank the corporate counsel, John Dwayne, for all his work keeping this board up to date with all the state issues, and for his direction to this board during these times. His counsel to the board is greatly appreciated. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Scott.
Indeed. Any other questions? I have one. We have a board member who is in Florida, will be in Florida for the meeting on the 22nd. We don't meet on the 29th, at least we're not planning to right now. I don't know if he'll be back for the first meeting in November, or possibly could still be in Florida. If he signs in to Zoom from Florida, is he able to be in the meeting, or does he have to actually be in Berrien County?
I think we had one member today who's in South Bend.
Oh, that's right.
I do not see any geographical restriction, as long as you say where you are. It doesn't say you have to be in the state.
So just like the Business Corporation Act, where someone can come in remotely.
Right, and of course, military duty is often subject to not being in the state.
Sure, sure. All right, very good. If there's nothing else for corporate counsel, then we'll move on to board appointments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Annette?
Yes, so we did have a change to our agenda this morning. Through committee and committee, we needed to look at having an alternate on the Department of Human Services Board to help with one of their members that's not able to attend, but not ready to be leaving that, and your appointment policy does allow for that. And so Deborah Reum, I believe is how you say her name, is actually a former DHS employee who's retired from there and has an interest in serving in that capacity as she is needed by the Board of Commissioners to fill that. And so we'd like to have you approve her as an alternate to the Department of Human Services Board, with that term expiring the same as the individual that she would be currently filling in for.
Does anyone know the correct pronunciation of her name?
This is Commissioner Harrison. I believe it's Ream.
Ream? Okay. And the current term for Ms. Hilliard, who is the permanent member that Ms. Ream would be connected to as an alternate. Do we know what that term is?
I'm sorry, what do you mean? She's a member of the Department of Human Services Board? Is that-
Yeah, the appointment. How long does the appointment go for?
10/31.
Much the term left.
2020.
Oh, she right now, she has been reappointed, so she's good right now until 2023.
Okay, all right. With that then, is there a motion to appoint Deborah Ream, Reaume, it's the spelling of the last name, as the alternate member to the DHS board for Mrs. Hilliard, who currently has some personal issues that would keep her from participating in the meetings. We look forward to when she can resume her participation, but under the circumstances, that's not an option right now, as I understand it. So, and that board has requested that we make an appointment so they have a full membership complement to do business. Bill?
I'd be glad to make that motion, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Harrison.
Thank
Commissioner
you.
Scott, I would support Commissioner Harrison's motion.
All right, we have a motion and support, now discussion. Commissioner Chickering.
Is this alternate position a permanent, ongoing, into the future position, or is this position of alternate only going to be for the coterminous terms of these two people?
That's up to us, I suppose.
Okay. So Annette will make a note at the end of 2023 on the alternate role, and then it'll be validated or not by this board.
Right, and I can let you know that I have tried to reach out to Ms. Hilliard
Yes.
to, as you guys have asked, to try to see how she's doing and that kind of thing. I've left 3 messages at her home and have not heard back from her yet, so
Right.
yeah, I think it's still unknown.
No, good, that's fine with me, thank you.
Okay. Given that this is a fluid situation, maybe we could do the appointment as an alternate and just leave it open-ended.
Sure.
No expiration? We had 10/31/2023.
We'd have the 10/31/2023 expiration to make it coincidental with Ms. Hilliard's current appointed term. And can make adjustments as circumstances warrant between now and then. Is that acceptable to everyone? Bob and Ezra, your motion and support remain with those caveats?
Yes.
Yes, it does.
Okay. Any other comments? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Freeling.
Yes.
Harrison.
Yes.
Hugo.
Yes.
Tingleben.
Yes.
Majerick.
Yes.
Meeks.
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Ballrat.
Yes.
Yarborough.
Yes.
Chickering.
Yes.
Elliott.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 11 yeas.
Thank you. Before we get to the consent calendar, we will pause for public comments regarding the resolutions on the agenda, which would include the added resolution ending in 369 coming from Finance, which involves an updated easement on some road department property with Indiana Michigan Power Company. So while we're waiting to see if there's any public comment, does anyone want to pull anything from the consent calendar, including that added resolution ending in 369? Okay, well, we'll plan on voting then on the consent calendar with the added resolution, and we'll wait to see if any comments are coming through the pipeline about resolutions.
appears as though we do not have any public comments regarding the resolutions. I have some other general ones, but.
All right. Inasmuch as there are no public comments concerning the resolutions, are there any board comments before we call the vote?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Scott, I'll make a motion that we approve the consent calendar along with added resolution F as in Frank 2010369.
I think you supported that motion made by Commissioner Harrison. But
I
could be
thought
wrong.
I thought I supported the motion for the adding the lady to the.
Oh,
Yeah, we haven't had any.
Yes.
okay. My mistake.
That's
thought the
Many
same
I
thing
will
you
make
did.
today. So the motion by Commissioner Scott is to approve the consent calendar, including the added resolution ending in 369. Is there support for that motion?
I'll support.
Supported by Volrath. Is there discussion? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Harrison,
Yes.
Hugo,
Yes.
Pinkelman,
Yes.
Majerick,
Yes.
Meeks,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Ballrat,
Yes.
Yarborough,
Yes.
Chickering,
Yes.
Freeling,
Yes.
Elliott.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 11 yeas.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is Finance Committee report. Madam Chair, are you doing the report or have you assigned it to one of the committee members?
I'm going to do it. And
Okay.
I ask the committee to listen, and if I left out something, please help me. What I'd like to say is our entire committee was present. Administrator Dissette, Annette, and Stephanie was our staff there. And we started out with Warren Parrish, who is the Director of Equalization, and he's coming to the full board next week with his assessment roles. It's something that must be done by, accepted by a commission in October. And what he's talking about, they study the level of assessment. They look to see that all the millages and different things from all the our townships and villages and cities are correct and are on, at the rate they're supposed to be. It's just kind of a checkup. And then the 2019-2020, what I asked him about when we talked about different communities, I wanted to know how the effect of all those stores and things that left Benton Charter Township that closed over, the last couple of years. And he said in Benton Charter Township, the value has increased to 2.22%. I'm so thankful for that because I wondered, how it affected it. And then Commissioner Scott had a question, and he said there are quite a few residents that normally had homes in New Buffalo area that were Chicago residents, and they were showing these properties as not their homestead, but they're now saying it's their homestead and registering. And he wondered how that affected the millages and our taxes and all. And what Warren Parrish was able to tell us is that their assessment stays the same. They are exempt from 18 mills for the school systems, but they'll continue to look at that and see, what it's doing to the numbers to keep up with the assessments. And then we want to let you know that the Drain Commission next week will present the drain rolls to us. Annette sent us the information, and she sent it by township and by drains to the full board. So look over those things and be ready if you have any questions of Drain Commissioner Quatrain next Thursday that will be asked. Let me see. Commissioner Scott asked about the bonds. And we just kind of, Judge Dwayne just kind of gave us information on that, if there was anything we would have to do with that, or what was the status, did it go through? And what Brian was able to tell us is that he had talked to the drain commissioner and no action was needed, and the bond sale has already been done. Then they were also able to tell us that the virtual meetings could continue. And that's what Judge Dwayne just told us also. We accepted the minutes, it was supported and it passed. And then we had, what is it called? That we had a 5% increase on a bid that we had made. It was a difference of $5,743.03. And Administrator Dissett had approved it. And what it is, as we talked and we had them, we didn't want to hold up the bill, but we had questions about it. And so what happened was, on the stretch of road between your avenue between Napier and Empire was resurfaced. And when they got down to it, there was a 2% slope and they had to bring in more gravel. And that's what made it higher. It was an unexpected amount. And so we all, as we talked, we got all that information, got in touch with, Annette got in touch with Jason Latham. Commissioner Harrison knew. And so come to find out it had already been done. And so we agreed that it should be paid and not hold it up. And we understand. We just wanted to know why it was almost 5% more than the original bid, but it was for unforeseen need and it was taken care of. Then we had a bid opening for the boiler at Niles. We had fixed one and realized the other one was in trouble and had gone ahead and we put out bids for it. And so what I'd like to let you know is that we put it out to 4 companies and 3 bid it. One was Andy Egan and his bid was $75,985. The other one, they're of Benton Harbor. The other one was Griffin P&H of Elkhart, Indiana. Their bid was $89,980. The next one was Mall City Mechanical of Kalamazoo, Michigan, and their bid was $70,740. And we made that motion that you pass it on, and if it needs to be more, come back to us and all of that. And that was our meeting today. Thank you.
Any questions for finance? All right. Any commissioner reports?
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Scott. I have some. This is Commissioner Scott. I have some important information.
Yes, sir.
On Tuesday, the 13th at 8:30 in the morning, I had a LRSB, which stands for Local Revenue Sharing Board meeting, and that was for the distribution of the funds from the tribal casino here in New Buffalo. And I have the complete worksheet here, but the only 2 things that I really want to stress is the total amount of money that we distributed was $3,187,623.27. Of that total amount, the amount to Berrien County was $463,818.98. And all I can tell you is checks are in the mail for those amounts. And if our administrator does not have this distribution sheet, I will more than likely, when I come up to clean my mailbox out in the next day or 2, drop this off so we can put that in the LRSB file for memory. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Ezra.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Commissioner Scott can avoid the trip. I've received the information.
But thank you.
Oddly, I still have to come up there. Annette has said I have to clean my mailbox out, so I do have to come. So, but thank you.
I can clean it out for you.
We can do that for you if you want. We'll
I'm just
open your
going by
deal.
what I was told, Mr. Chair.
Oops.
Okay, thanks, Ezra.
Thank you.
Any other reports? Administrator report, anything you want to share?
Mr. Chair, I will ask the sheriff and undersheriff to attend your next meeting. While we've been sitting here, I was notified by the undersheriff that Senate Bill 321 has been approved and signed by the governor. So I will ask the two of them to come to your next meeting, provide more details.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
General public comments.
Eric Lester from St. Joseph Township. Thank you for making this meeting available. During the health department report, he asked the question, who is the main contact person at Lakeland that Ms. Britton deals with? Who at Lakeland has primary responsibility regarding COVID? I asked him if he wanted that as part of general comments, and he said yes.
All right.
He has more. At my request that the meetings, I'm sorry, Annette, would you please also add, as a comment, my request that the meetings currently made available by YouTube continue to be made available on an ongoing basis, regardless of COVID, etc. These broadcast and recorded meetings are very helpful for the ordinary citizen who is trying to do their duty as a citizen by following local public activities carefully. Thanks.
It's real.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lester. Anyone else?
Adolph says hello from Hanger.
Hey, no.
Your chair is still here, Adolph.
Yep.
Tony Benhart actually corrected me, just as a side note, that the address I have on the resolution for the main location of the road department is incorrect, and so I will get that changed before we file that resolution. I thanked him for his input. One more time. Oh.
Thank you, Tony.
So I'm sorry. He has, so Tony Benhart from Sodas Township. Besides the comment about the main location of the road department, the line, he says, is the southwest corner of the Napier property. It's the line from Kedzie Creek to Riverside, across your south of the Napier property, across the southwest corner of the road department, and then across Napier. 3rd Street in Niles, I see the south side of, I guess I must have missed something. After the comment about Napier and 3rd Street in Niles, I see the south side of Napier, the manholes were put in with concrete, as should have been by common practices. Is that maybe a continuation from last week?
Yeah. I spoke to him about it yesterday.
I'm asking another time, just one more time, to see if there's any other public comments. All right, I do believe you're done.
Okay, any other business? Announcements, reminders, next week, we're doing the meeting like we have done it today. And unless there's some real good reason to meet, we won't meet on the 29th, 2 weeks from today, because that would be that is the 5th Thursday of the month. And as you know, we try not to meet on those Thursdays because that provides a boost in morale for our employees to not have us here.
True.
So, with that, anybody have anything else? Okay, if not, we're adjourned to third. Yes, sir?
Mayor, this is Commissioner Scott. I do have to say that I'm very impressed and very, very, very happy to hear that Peltzer Adolph from Hager Township is watching us.
Indeed, indeed, for everyone.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Look forward to seeing them in the room as soon as circumstances permit. All right, with that, we stand adjourned to 10:30 on Thursday next.
Thank you.
Thank you.